Hello, everyone. Welcome to Adaptive Socio-Technical Systems with Architecture for Flow. So can you guess what those companies have in common? Well, they have in common that they don't exist anymore, or not with their original core business. All of these companies filed for bankruptcy or were selling their core businesses. But why? What was the reasons for those companies to shut down or to sell their core business? Their major reason were the failure to adapt. These companies failed to adapt or to keep up with new and changing circumstances so that they were forced to file for bankruptcy or selling their core business in the end, which led to massive job and financial losses, but not only in the US, but also worldwide. So the failure to adapt led to massive damages on these companies, their employees, and their stakeholders. In today's fast-paced business environment, it's essential for organizations to continuously adapt and to evolve to remain competitive and to stay relevant in the market. So the question is how to design and build and to build systems that evolve and thrive in the face of constant change. One approach is to tackle the situation from a rather holistic view and to combine various perspectives. So it requires to understand the landscape as an organization is operating and competing in, including the external forces impacting the landscape. It requires to gain a shared understanding of the business domain to build the system that is closely aligned to the business domain and to the business strategy. It requires not only to align the technical solution, but also aligning the teams and their interaction to the system we build and the strategy we plan. So one approach, or with other words, one approach could be connecting the dots between Wardley Mapping, DomainDriven Design, and Team Topologies. And this within 20 minutes. So let's go. So let's demonstrate this approach by using an example of an online school solution for junior students. And we can start with gaining a common understanding of the competitive landscape this online school is operating in by creating a Wardley map that visualizes the landscape of an organization. And a Wardley map is part of Wardley Mapping, a business strategy framework invented by Simon Wardley. And when creating a Wardley map, we identify the users and their user needs as the anchor of the map. And those user needs are directly or indirectly fulfilled by a chain of components delivering value to the users as the value chain. And the components of the value chain are typically mapped to evolution stages. So from Genesis at the left with brand new things, then custom build, then product and rental, such as off-the-shelf products or open source software solution, and commodity and utility at the right. And each evolution stage comes with different characteristics. Towards the left spectrum, the components are changing far more frequently than components on the right spectrum. So on the left spectrum, we are dealing with uncertainties and unknown unknowns and an undefined, poorly understood market. While on the right spectrum, the components become more stable, known, standardized, and the markets are well-defined and mature. And the map helps us to identify areas where your organization can innovate, where to improve efficiency or outsource to gain a competitive advantage. But that requires to understand the external forces that are impacting our landscape. And that's where we come to the climatic patterns. Climatic patterns are describing external forces that are impacting our landscape over which we have no control. However, understanding climatic patterns is very important to anticipate change according to Simon Wardley. Understanding climatic patterns gives us an idea where the landscape can change and where to invest. One pattern is that the landscape is never static but very dynamic, so everything evolves from left to right through the forces of supply and demand competition. For example, cloud-hosted services reflect these climatic patterns. What was decades ago non-existent evolved through Genesis, custom build, product and rental, and now became commodity and utility. Large language models evolved due to the competition-driven technology advancement and became available as products. And the standardization and industrialization of components increases efficiencies. And that brings us to another climatic pattern of efficiency enables innovation. So the industrialization and standardization of components and its sufficient provision enables the innovation of others. So it enables that new features of existing products can appear, or that other components can co-evolve, or that new components can emerge. And it's the genesis of new components that enables new user needs as another climatic pattern. So understanding the climatic patterns and the landscape helps us to anticipate opportunities from a business strategy point of view and gives us an idea of areas of potential change and where to invest in order to gain competitive advantage. But before applying those changes and before applying those investments, we need to assess how well we are equipped as an organization to respond to those changes quickly and to absorb changes gracefully. For example, to assess responsiveness to change, we can assess how a change would flow through our system. We could assess what components are entangled in that change and how these entangled components are coupled together. For example, when we would like to introduce a functional change and add a new feature that serves one of the user needs, that requires to make changes to the online school component. The online school component is currently a monolithic big ball of mud with a very messy model and no clear ownership boundaries. It's impossible to modify one part without impacting other parts. And so we are dealing with tight change coupling. Due to tight change coupling, the extensibility and responsiveness to change is very impacted. And since Conway's law, we know that we have to consider not only the technical part of our solution, but also the socio-related part for team organization as well. So the teams of our online school solution are currently organized as functional silo teams. Introducing a functional change from front-end to back-end requires to communicate and coordinate between multiple teams. And due to handover, the functional silo teams have to deal with high communication and coordination effort and wait times when implementing and releasing changes. So blocking dependencies and high communication and coordination effort between teams slows down our software delivery performance and responsiveness to change. In addition, the big ball of mud with its messy model and no clear boundaries leads to high team cognitive load and lack of clear ownership. So if the team cognitive load is largely exceeded, then it becomes a delivery bottleneck and impeding our responsiveness to change. So at this stage, our system is poorly equipped to respond to changes quickly and to adapt easily. So how can we change that? To increase the responsiveness to change, we need to design adaptive socio-technical systems that are optimized for a fast flow of change. And this can be achieved as one approach out of many by combining Wardley Mapping, DomainDriven Design, and Team Topologies as architecture for flow. And we can use our previously created Wardley map as a foundation, and optimizing our fast flow of change requires to know where the most important changes in our system occur, the streams of changes. In our current online school example, we are using the user needs of our Wardley map as activity-oriented streams of changes, so they need to be focused on when optimizing for flow. The users in the user needs are not only representing the anchor of our Wardley map, but also represent the problem domain. And that's where domain-driven design comes in. Domain-driven design helps us to create a shared understanding of our problem domain and partitioning it into smaller parts, the subdomains. But not all subdomains are equal. Some are more valuable to the business than others, so we have different types of subdomains. The core domains, that is the essential part of our system providing competitive advantage. So that is the subdomains we have to strategically invest in most and build in-house. The supporting subdomains, they help to support the core domain. They do not provide competitive advantage, but are necessary for the organization to succeed and are typically prevalent in other competitive solutions as well. So if possible, we should look out for buying off-the-shelf products or using open source software solutions. If this is not possible, if we have to custom build the supporting subdomains, we should be aware that we should not invest too much into that system because they do not that part of the system because they do not provide competitive advantage. Generic subdomains are subdomains that many business systems have, for example, registration or authentication. So they aren't core, provide no competitive advantage, but businesses cannot work without them. So buying or using off-the-shelf products or using open source software solutions or outsourcing to utility suppliers can be applied to the generic subdomains. So the subdomains types help us to prioritize our strategic investment and support us also in making build, buy, and outsource decisions. But currently, the solution of our subdomains are all mingled together in our tightly coupled monolithic big ball of mud, and with a messy model and no clear boundaries. So to be responsive to change, we need to decompose our online school component into modular components. And that's where bounded context of domain-driven design can help us with. A bounded context in domain-driven design groups related behavior together, and they are indicating good domain-focused themes to split a system apart and also serve very well as ownership boundaries. And that makes bounded contexts also good candidates for suitable team boundaries for streamlined teams. But streamlined teams are relying on other teams supporting them delivering their work, and that requires to identify services to support a reliable flow of changes that can form an easily consumable XSS service. In our example, we are the infrastructure-related components in product and rental and commodity and utility evolution stage. They are representing potential candidates for suitable for forming a platform that can be effectively provided by platform teams or platform groups, as I've learned earlier today. I have to change all my slides. So the previous consideration might result in this very first draft, very simplified draft of team constellation, where the bounded contexts are going to be handled by multiple streamlined teams, and the infrastructure components are handled by one or multiple platform teams. We also have to mind potential efficiency gaps. So from the climatic patterns we have learned earlier that everything evolves from left to right through the forces of demand and supply competition. So if the evolution stages of the components that we use in our organization differ from the ones that are available in the market, we might that might indicate an efficiency gap. For example, if we are using custom-built components in our organization where equivalent ones are available as utility, that indicates an efficiency gap or indicate inefficiencies. And closing that efficiency gap increases our efficiencies, and that we have learned earlier from the climatic patterns. Then we can benefit from the climatic pattern of efficiency enables innovation. So one approach of closing the efficiency gap in our example could be done by migrating infrastructure components to the cloud. So how to transition into the target architecture for flow? And this transition can be initiated by a TeamFirst approach. Optimizing our system for fast flow of change is led by dynamically reteaming the functional silo teams into platform and streamlined teams and evolving their interaction along a cloud migration journey. And the transition could start with forming a platform team first that kicks off the replatforming cloud migration by incrementally replacing the infrastructure components with cloud-hosted services. The streamlined teams take care of refactoring the application by splitting the application's architecture into smaller parts, the previously designed bounded context. And the refactoring journey is supported by an evolution of team topology interaction modes. So for example, the streamlined team can collaborate at the beginning closely together with the platform team and jointly discover and assess possible cloud options of the future bounded context that the streamlined teams are going to be responsible for. And the close collaboration can then evolve into limited collaboration and eventually become X as a service, where the platform teams provide best practices, standards, tools, APIs to easily consume cloud services. So the next stream-aligned team can form and refactor their bounded context and get also support as a facilitation and team topology interaction mode from the previous platform team and the previous stream-aligned teams during their and sharing their knowledge and coaching them along their refactoring journey. And then the next stream-aligned team can form and get also support from the other teams sharing the knowledge and coaching them about best practices during their refactoring journey. So that at the end, we were able to refactor our monolithic big ball of mud into modular bounded context and formed a platform and stream-aligned teams and aligned their interaction to support a cloud migration journey and have optimized our system for flow. By the way, I'm sharing the slides if you're not able to catch. So I have to slide very fast through. I'm sorry about that. So we don't have to stop there. We can also continue with creating Wardley maps also from the internal user perspective. So switching to the X as a service perspective makes the stream-aligned teams now the internal users of the services that the platform team provide. To fulfill the user needs, for example, of the stream-aligned teams, the platform team can support or can provide a variety of a service, such as pipeline as a service to support the stream-aligned team to build, test, release, and deploy the services, or monitoring as a service, supporting the stream-aligned teams to operate and monitor the service of bounded context. Or platform as a service then enables the stream-aligned teams to provision the runtime environment for the services of bounded context. Or we can also then identify some capability gap, and that's where switching then to the enabling teams. And the specialist of enabling teams can then coach stream-aligned teams in different areas on demand, for example, coaching them about best practices of automated testing, or also supporting the platform teams and facilitate and coach them about what is important to achieve a good developer experience, or how to design a good API and so on. But you might object, we are successful, we shouldn't change. Why should we change? And that's fine as long you have no competition or your competitors are lagging behind. But be aware you might face inertia to change. Inertia to change created by past success impedes the evolution of components. And it's not the lack of innovation that can kill an organization, but the inertia to change. Being successful today doesn't mean that you stay successful for tomorrow when the world around you changes. When the market changes, you have to change too. Investing in building adaptive socio-technical systems optimized for a fast flow of change equips you to thrive in the face of constant change. We are now in a position where we are able not only to respond to changes, but also leading future changes. We are now in a position to impact the landscape to our benefit by applying strategic action where others now have to respond to. For example, we can create additional differentiating values, increasing our competitive advantage. We can also be the first mover to commoditize components that others can innovate on and identify usage patterns as sensing engine to identify future components to standardize. It helps us to build cooperations and alliances to accelerate the evolution of components and to grow our ecosystem. So now we are in the driving seat of change. So at the end, I'm coming to the end. So the combination of Wardley Mapping, domain-driven design, and Team Topologies helps us to understand the competitive landscape an organization is operating in, and also understanding the climatic patterns acting on that landscape in order to anticipate opportunities and changes and identify areas of potential change and where to invest. It helps us to gain domain knowledge and discovering our core domain, providing competitive advantage, and helps us to know what components to build in-house, where to buy or use off-the-shelf products or open source software solutions, or outsource to utility suppliers. It helps us to leverage modularity, for example, with bounded context as well-defined ownership boundaries. It helps us to align our team to the system and align the interaction to the system we build and the strategy we plan. And it helps us to eliminate delivery bottlenecks and increasing software delivery performance. So the combination of those three perspectives helps to design, build, and evolve adaptive socio-technical systems that are optimized for a fast flow of change that enables us to evolve and thrive in the face of constant change. And with that, there's more than 20 minutes talk. There's a book coming out soonish. And with that, I thank you so much for your attention.